to the World Vegan Travel Podcast, where we explore the world through a vegan lens. I'm Brighde, co-founder of World Vegan Travel Tours. Our mission is to inspire and guide you on how to explore the world as a vegan. We bring you a diverse range of episodes, from sharing our personal vegan travel experiences to showcasing the journeys of others. We also conduct interviews with passionate individuals and organisations who are dedicated to promoting veganism and protecting the rights of animals, both human and non-human, in travel destinations across the globe. Get ready to be inspired to embark on your own vegan travel adventure with us. Let's dive right in. So today we'll be discussing an essential topic for companion animals or pet owners, and that is preparing for your animal's care when you are away. As travellers and devoted pet parents to our wonderful cats, Pinky and Squeaky, my partner and I, Seb, we developed a comprehensive plan to ensure our pets' well-being during our frequent and long absences over the past nearly 20 years. So if you're tuning into this podcast, chances are you share our passion for exploring the world while staying true to your vegan values. But amidst our adventures, there's always a concern lingering back home: our beloved animal companions. You are their caregivers and you take that role very seriously. So whether you're jet setting for leisure or obligated to travel for work, leaving behind our furry friends can stir up a mix of emotions. Some of us may hesitate, especially if our pets are senior or dealing with health issues. Yet there are times when we feel compelled to take the leap for that special journey or for a professional commitment. Now, let's be real here. Even the best plan is not going to take away the worry that you will likely have if you have an aging animal or an animal that needs a lot of intervention. But the possibility of our pets falling ill while we're away is a genuine concern for us all. So let's try to take away some of this stress by making sure that we have all of the bases covered. So even before our business with World Vegan Travel began, we were both seasoned travelers. Even though we had cats, we were clocking about 3 months on the road each year, and this was due to our love of travel, my generous school holidays and really great, fantastic teaching package, and Seb's travel hacking. And let me tell you, we have had our fair share of pet-related emergency whilst we've been away over the nearly 19 years we shared with our beloved cats. We had to get a phone call from our pet sitter telling us that there was some sort of wound by Pinky's bottom, which ended up being a very bad case of ruptured anal glands. That was when we were at a train station in Switzerland. Then we had to navigate a very severe touch and go bout of pancreatitis while we were with a group in remote Botswana. And then there was Pinky, bless her beautiful heart, during our trip to Japan in April 2024, a first Japan trip that we did. She threw us a curveball with vomiting blood, likely due to intestinal tumors, which she had been diagnosed with possible mass in her intestines. And it could have been due to that, or it could have been due to prednisone that she had been given to help with appetite stimulation and as a painkiller as well. But unfortunately, one of the side effects of that can be a possible ulceration. So we'd already received the news with Pinky just before we went to Japan that we were going to be giving her palliative care. But then just a few weeks later, when she started the stronger course of prednisone, she vomited blood. And the vet tech really didn't think that she was going to make it through the night. And then when she did make it through the night, we talked about taking her to the emergency vet, which I'll talk about in a little bit later, but we all decided that it was better to just be with her and to take her to the vet when it opened the following morning. So when the vet called us, like later that afternoon, Canada time, and gave his prognosis for Pinky, and he really didn't think that she was going to make it, then I decided that I needed to cut short my time in Japan. Just the idea of not being there when she needed me most, that really was very hard to take. So I came home and poor Seb dealt with the trip. And long story short, she managed through that, and she made it through several more months. So, but yeah, at the time, the fear was real. So before we dive into the specifics of what I want to share with you, I want to shine a light on something that's been an absolute game changer for us over the years, and that is pet insurance. So as somebody that tends to worry about money, like getting bills, like one day it's like $1,000, and the next day from the vet, that is, it's like another $1,000 and another $800. These things add up, and this is like not stress that I like to have in my life, as well as animals being sick. I want to share how it alleviated a lot of the stress. So before we moved to Canada, pet insurance wasn't even on our radar. Living in places like Thailand and Indonesia, vet care was affordable and it was straightforward. And there was not a lot of treatment options either, to be honest, which, thankfully, we were never in a situation where they were so sick that the vet care that they could get in Thailand wasn't enough. So I'm grateful for that. But it also means that it's a lot cheaper because all of these really, really fancy treatments just are not available. If they're available, you want to get them, right? So when we came to Canada, we quickly realized that vet bills here could pack quite a punch. So I decided to explore pet insurance options, and I landed on PetSecure, a Canadian company. I do think that they've got a US partner or equivalent. I can't remember what it's called though. Anyway, we'd opted for the highest tier plan, thank goodness. I really had to fight Seb on this, to be honest, but thankfully he accepted my decision, and we took the highest tier coverage that there was. It was called Secure 4, which covered 80% of expenses, including exam fees and taxes, with no limits per accident or condition. And this to me is a really key thing that you want to look for. If you can't have no limits, choose a really, really high limit. It also included dental care and wellness coverage. There was a deductible of $350 per pet per year and a 20% copay. So given our cat's senior status by this point, we had to undergo some pre-existing condition checks. I can't remember what exactly, certainly blood work, maybe an ultrasound, I'm not sure. However, not surprisingly, a few issues popped up. So Pinky's pre-existing conditions that, even though we hadn't seen any evidence of many of these, the blood test picked up arthritis, pancreatic issues, thyroid problems, which we did know about before, and kidney disease, urinary system concerns. These were the ones for Pinky. And for Squeaky, it was just urinary concerns. So despite these exclusions and knowing that we would never have coverage for these things, we went ahead with the policy, and we were paying $80 Canadian per cat per month and kept it up until they passed. Now, let me tell you, despite the pre-existing conditions, insurance really came through, especially for Squeaky, likely because she had fewer pre-existing conditions. She was really suffering with an intestinal mass, plus she had tons of pancreatitis, and her kidney disease got really, really bad towards the end. So despite the fact that kidney disease wasn't covered, by the time Squeaky passed in August 2023, insurance had reimbursed us a staggering $25,000, and most of that was for Squeaky. Now, I'm not going to do the math for you right now, but we were paying $160 per month for both cats. That's like, I don't know, $1,500, let's say, over 3 years. We definitely made our money back despite everything. Some might think that pet insurance is not unnecessary, and I see a lot of people say this, especially for younger pets. But here's the thing, even young pets aren't immune to illnesses or accidents, and routine annual checkups might uncover chronic conditions early. And this will mean that if you take your insurance out after that point, then they're going to be pre-existing conditions. So if you get insurance taken out really, really early, then this is going to help a lot. So I'm a convert. I think it's great for sure. So I just want to talk a little bit about some specifics of insurance, and if you haven't had your mind changed yet, but there are cheaper plans which limit the coverage. As I told you, we had like the highest coverage. There were a lot of lower tier plans. There was one that had a limit of, I think, $1,000 per condition per year. Now, I mean, $1,000 is still a lot of money, but I can afford that. The things that I want peace of mind for is the really big stuff, like cancer treatments or accidents, like when poor Squeaky got her poor tail slammed off in the door. It was just too awful. Or 10 days of IV fluids, which I think Squeaky had over the course of her final months. Just those IV fluids would cost about $10,000. So I really, really suggest that you really consider this. I would be happy to have a conversation and to walk people through it, because I just want you to avoid that kind of stress and worry that I did. I know taking out insurance feels really overwhelming, but I think I've got it down to a fine art. Another thing that I think a lot of people say when they're considering getting insurance for a companion animal, or any insurance comes to that, people say, well, maybe I'll just put the money that I would spend on insurance into an emergency medical fund. And yeah, there's an argument to be made for that. If you have the discipline to save $80 per pet per month and you never dip into it, then yes, that's going to save you $960 a year, which you can put towards care for your pet in the case of an emergency. But like I said, just one day at the vets can cost $1,300. That was what it was for Pinky with pancreatitis. So it's not cheap. It's not cheap. I think I've gone on about my tirade about pet insurance long enough. Let's talk about some other things that you can do to make you feel better about traveling with animals. So first of all, travel insurance. Now, when I talk about travel insurance, I'm often talking about like getting treatment for you, for the traveler when you're traveling overseas. And there's also trip cancellation or trip interruption insurance that allows you to come home or to cancel your trip, but it does not cover if your pet gets sick, and it certainly won't cover your pet if it's a pre-existing condition. That is for sure. So the only way you can mitigate this risk is considering, it's a bit pricey, but I think it's worth it, cancel for any reason insurance. So cancel for any reason insurance is usually an add-on that you can add to your travel insurance if you are a resident of the United States, and there are 4 US states that you can't take out that insurance for a reason I don't want to bore you with. But CFAR insurance can cover 75% of non-refundable travel costs if you need to cancel your trip for any reason, including if your pet falls ill before you leave and you decide to stay with them. Now, I think there are a few little limits, like I don't think you can do it shorter than 3 days before departure, but otherwise, it's really good. Now, does it cover everything? No, but it covers 75%, which is awesome. And by taking that out, it allows you to put the deposit down or to pay for your non-refundable trip with the knowledge that you will get most of that money back if you need to make a claim. So I think it's great. And we've got plenty of content to help you navigate this aspect of travel planning. You can just go onto our website and search insurance. We've got a ton of stuff there. Now, one of the first things you want to do when jetting off on your travel is to assemble your pet care team. Having a reliable team in place is really important, especially if your pet has health concerns or if any issues arise while you're away. I'm going to share some personal stories and insights that have shaped our approach. So, finding a trustworthy pet sitter is paramount. We use trusted house sitters, which is basically like an exchange. It is a website, a platform which connects responsible individuals. Many of them have extra like credentials in terms of looking after animals, and they've got lots of reviews, etc. And in exchange for them looking after your animals, you don't have to pay. We used trusted house sitters many times when we lived in Bangkok, and it worked out really well. I know at times it can be a bit challenging, some, even you do a lot of vetting, it might not work out, or they might become a little bit flaky and cancel on you. That is definitely something that's super stressful, and definitely something that I have heard happening, although it hasn't not happened to me. And once we moved to Canada, we relied on family members like Pinky and Squeaky's grandma, which was Pauline. It was perfect. She just lived 2 floors down from us, and she was deeply devoted to our cats, and she provided us with so much peace of mind. If you don't have a family member that can come and stay, there's lots of services for finding pet sitters, whether they stay in your house, which I would definitely recommend if you have an animal that has issues, rather than just getting someone to pop in a couple of times a day. So if your animal requires a lot of extra care, make sure that they're comfortable with any special requirements, like dispensing medications. When they come, get them to come a few days before you leave, especially if there are health issues that require a lot of care, so they can get into the rhythm with everything. I have learned that even with the best written instructions, this is not a replacement for the opportunity to try it out by themselves and get some hands-on practice. So, of course, if you're going to use professional pet sitters, that's going to cost. It costs quite a bit. Services like trusted house sitters, I think you pay an annual membership fee. Pet sitters vary cost-wise, and I found that it's usually about $60 to $100 a day. And of course, you should expect to pay more if they had to administer a lot of medication. So finding like a regular pet sitter is definitely something that you can do. However, I would like to suggest something that maybe you haven't thought of before, and that is engaging the services of like some vet techs from the vets around you. So as our pets aged and their health needs evolved, we relied on vet techs for specialized care when we were away. For example, as Squeaky's kidney disease progressed, she required daily subcutaneous fluids. Similarly, Pinky needed subcutaneous fluids and other intramuscular medications that Pauline wasn't comfortable administering, especially when she had a broken wrist twice. There was also blood that we needed to take from her vein. Oh my goodness, there was so much. And establishing a relationship with vet techs at local clinics was how we avoided the stress of having to take our cats to the vet every single day for the administering of the medications. So we ended up having the vet techs coming to our house in the morning and the evening, even when we were here. And then when we were not here, they would stay over at our place. And of course, we paid them for that. And many of the vet techs we spoke to, we put some feelers out in a few different places. They were quite willing to take on additional work because it was something that they could do on the way to work, on the way back from work. Maybe you have a really nice apartment that they would get to stay in, compared with maybe they have to commute really far, something like that. So definitely vet techs could be a great solution to pet sitting, and pet sitting when your animals are not doing too well. And we compensated our vet techs for their services. Of course, it was not cheap. We paid $100 Canadian per day. I mean, it was not cheap, but it was worth it. And they were doing a very, very skilled job. I just want to make that clear. I do not think that I was overcharged for what they did. They were administering oral medications, subcutaneous fluids, and other injections. And like I said, we ended up having these wonderful young women coming to our house twice a day, and ended up being 9 months. So I'm going to let you do the math there. Also, I recommend keeping your regular vet in the loop about your travel plans and pet care arrangements, especially if you're going away for a while and your pet has many health issues. Establishing a communication plan ensures really good decision making in emergencies. When things got really, really difficult, we had a WhatsApp group with our vet, ourselves, and Pauline. That was great because, of course, the time zone is always an issue, and receiving calls can have expensive global roaming fees. Having our vet on a WhatsApp chat group was fantastic. And I also really recommend you provide your vet with detailed end-of-life care plan for your vet, including contact information and decision-making protocols. So I even got down into the weeds of like, did I want a cremation? Did I want my cat to be cremated individually, or did I want them to be, to be cremated with other pets? What kind of urn would I want? All of these kinds of things. I had all of that in an end of life plan. So yeah, that was super, super helpful. It really helped us out. Anyway, the next thing was emergency vets. So I live 45 minutes north of Vancouver in a smallish town, and there are no out of hours vets where I live. The closest one is about 45 minutes away in northern Vancouver. So first of all, you need to know the location of your nearest emergency vet. And we had 2 visits to the emergency vet out of hours when Squeaky injured her tail during a windy day when the door slammed on our tail. We were not away when this happened. It was an incredible accident that we couldn't have prevented. And another time when she was struggling with a gabapentin overdose, and we were really worried about her. Anyway, when you're away, having a plan in place for transportation to the emergency vet is really important, especially if your pet sitter doesn't have access to a car. So taxi phone numbers, giving them permission to take a taxi is helpful. And another thing that caught us out once was when Pinky's poor tail happened. We did not have access to Squeaky's medical records because the vet was closed and we didn't have them. So this was a problem because the vet wanted to be able to see her records in order to know about whether something to do with the operation, and basically he didn't have them. Anyway, long story short, it was all fine, but something that I learned to do was every 3 months or so I would contact my regular vet and get them to download a copy of the vet records, of the pet records, and then putting it on Google Drive or Google Docs so that the vet would be able to see in case of emergencies. Another thing is you can also play a vital role in your pet's care team. Monitoring your pet's well-being through cameras can provide valuable insights into their health. We had cameras over the food bowls to track their eating habits. This was always very, very difficult with aging cats. Usually this was a constant worry of Pinky or Squeaky not eating. And when cats don't eat for a few days, it's really, really bad. So consistent eating is always a good sign. And a sudden change in eating can be something very serious, and not eating for 3 days is a serious concern. So being able to scroll through the recordings and to be able to see when she ate and how much she was eating, especially when our cats were both grazers, so they weren't, used to just being fed twice a day and eating immediately. The cameras over the food bowls really reassured us when things were going well, but it also really stressed us out because I was always checking it, but it did help us to know if she was not eating. We put cameras by water bowls and litter trays. And one issue to think about is some pet sitters, like I think trusted house sitters, do not allow cameras to be used inside the house. I get why, but didn't love that possibility. That's a new thing. That was something that was new since I had worked with them before we came to Canada. One very effective method for making sure that everyone is on the same page is to have a detailed document outlining all of their needs and preferences. So by having a Google document, it means that it has the most current information and there's one point of truth. Before each trip, this would always take me so much time, I meticulously updated our pet care Google Doc, ensuring it was thorough, up-to-date, accurate, and clear. So I would include like departure and arrival information as to help our pet sitters and caregivers plan accordingly. I would have like a table with any scheduled vet visits that were there. I would also have contact information so that the pet sitters or the vet techs could communicate with Pauline, could communicate with the vets, could communicate with us. We had a WhatsApp group. And of course, they could share photos and videos as well. Number 3, medication needs. I had to be very, very clear on this, obviously. And I would even give like a medication tracking list because Pinky, she just had so many medications at different times of day. It was so confusing that, well, the vet techs seemed to find it really, really easily, but anyone else, I think, would find it really, really hard to keep a track of everything. Of course, they're professionals, but a regular pet sitter would get confused. So whatever you can do to make it really clear. I had like a paper with the date and then the medication and what time of day it should be, etc., etc. I also asked them to check their poop, check Pinky and Squeaky's poop. Was she going to the bathroom? And I will also check weight as well. These two things can also offer valuable insights, especially over extended absences. So if you were able to track weight fluctuations and stool qualities, it would often help you know that to be on higher alert. I also did a lot of other things like water bowl maintenance, instructions for filling and cleaning the water bowls, along with any filtration system maintenance. I would show them and write down about potential dangers in the home, toxic plants, accessible chemicals, doors that slam. Definitely that was one that was an issue. Getting, check before turning the washing machine on, make sure cat hasn't decided to make that a comfortable bed. Oh, just the thought of it just makes me feel terrible. Oh my goodness. Also giving detailed description of symptoms, including sickness or discomfort, along with steps for assessing severity. I would always talk about pain and how you can detect pain as in cats, and I think in all animals actually. Animals can be in a lot of pain and they don't seem like they are, but actually they are. So you really need to look out for very specific behaviors. Then, of course, I would tell them to watch for grooming habits, activity levels, appetite, all of those things. If there were any special dietary needs, both Pinky and Squeaky were on numerous types of specialized foods, including feeding schedules, portion sizes, supplements that they might use as well. I also gave them a bit of a medical history overview as well, details on past illnesses, treatments that they did, warning signs to monitor, and of course, what the cats liked. What did they like being played with? How did they like relaxing? How did they enjoy spending their time? And of course, just general house essentials, Wi-Fi passwords, fuse box locations, emergency contact numbers. All of these are really helpful. And then your expectations for the house. So instructions on how you want to return to the house, expectations for restocking supplies, coffee and toilet paper, things like that. Who wants to come home from a long trip and not have toilet paper and not be able to have coffee in the morning? That would just be awful. I also provided what to do in the event of emergencies, how to get to our regular vet, emergency vet services, and I also outlined expectations regarding pet insurance, telling them to make sure they kept any invoices, any payment receipts, so that I will be able to make a claim. And towards the end of Pinky and Squeaky's lives, I created an end of care plan. I talked a little bit about this already, but also like end of life care decisions, protocols for reaching us in case of critical care decisions and who might make those decisions if we're not available. Early return circumstances, criteria for us to consider an early return home and balancing the urgency of the situation with our travel commitments. I talked a little bit about final arrangements, like preferences for end-of-life care, cremation options, memorialization, and any sentimental things like collecting mementos such as fur clippings, paw prints, and personal effects, preserving those memories. And I had those purchased ahead of time and ready to go. This document was formatted in a really, really user-friendly question and answer way, that it was clear and accessible for all of the caregiving team, like when are Brighde and Seb away? Should we communicate everything with Pauline and have the same conversations as we might have with Brighde and Seb? Would Brighde and Seb like to return for euthanasia if they're not in Squamish? How can we contact Brighde and Seb in the case of an emergency or time-sensitive issue? And how should we contact Brighde and Seb for a non-emergency? Because if it's not an emergency, I would rather not be woken up in the middle of the night due to the time difference. Whew. That was our comprehensive approach to pet care. And it has garnered a lot of attention and appreciation from our pet care team, who They said at least they valued the detailed information we provided, enabling them to deliver great care for our dearest, dearest Pinky and Squeaky. So that's it. That's all I have to share about this topic. I really do hope that this has been helpful. I'd be curious to know what you think about this. Was I just too over the top in this kind of stuff? Maybe I was, but I don't know. Doing something helped me feel prepared. Anyway. All right. I want to thank you for tuning into this different episode of the Well Vegan Travel podcast. I hope you found that episode useful in preparing for your next trip away from home. If you have beautiful animals that are part of your family, stay tuned for more episodes that will help you get ready to discover this beautiful planet or go further afield. And if you're interested in finding out more about Well Vegan Travel and what we do, please check out our website, wellvegantravel.com. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to dig a little deeper into the content, you can do that by going to the show notes. Thanks so much for listening.